welcome to the Geeking Poetic podcast channel.
On this channel, we have shows and segments that contain adult humor,
bad language, dirty jokes,
and other stuff that is strictly for mature audiences only.
So if you're too young or too sensitive for this kind of material, then please do not watch our channel or our videos.
This channel is not for you.
Thanks much.
And now, on with the show! About to fall over.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Geeking Poetic Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Larry Roberts. Over to my right is
Megan Giss.
And we're here to talk about the latest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe story, the MCU, by Disney, of course, because they own all that stuff now. And it's a new mini-series, I guess, that's going to be, 6 episodes?
I believe it's 6 episodes.
Yeah, 6 episodes on the Disney Plus channel, and it is none other than...
WandaVision. WandaVision.
Yeah. Every episode they have a different little jingle. We are going to offer our review, opinion, whatever, insight about the show. So far, there's 3 episodes in. The 3rd episode just came out today, and we had tried doing this before. After the last episode, we tried doing this, and we ended up deciding
We were still too confused to make an opinion, so...
Yeah. We decided we'd wait and at least watch one more episode before we kind of gave you our opinion and review of the thing, because now we're about halfway through the series, and to be honest with you, we're still kind of confused.
We're confused, but I'm glad we did. I think it was a good call.
Yeah, to wait, because in this latest episode, there's a lot that happened. Didn't illuminate a whole hell of a lot, but this show is a show that keeps giving you like little hints. It's all about the hints and the subtleties and the Easter eggs, and there's just tons of that. If you don't know, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably have an idea of what the show is about, but WandaVision is basically about Wanda, and who's Scarlet Witch, and the Vision, and this is supposed to take place after the events in Endgame, which in and of itself is curious because Vision is in this. So your first question is,
how is that possible?
Yeah, because Vision died at the end of Infinity War. Spoilers. I mean, if you don't know this. And there's going to be spoilers throughout this whole thing. So, again, if you haven't watched the show and you don't want spoilers, don't watch or listen to this show right now, because come back later after you've watched it. So the first question is, well, how can there be a show that has Wanda and Vision? Well, right off the bat, you realize something is...
amiss?
Yeah, something ain't quite right, because they're living this sort of like sitcom TV existence. And the first episode starts out with them being in like the 50s, the 1950s, very Ozzie and Harriet, Dick Van Dyke, Leave It to Beaver kind of thing. And it's in black and white. The second episode, they move on to more of like a Bewitched kind of theme, and they really emulate that, not only in the events that happen in the episode, but even like the intro and stuff like that. Because they all throughout all 3 episodes, they've been aping stuff from their respective decade.
I think it's done on purpose.
Oh, absolutely, it's done on purpose, but it's neat, but it's kind of weird when you don't know where they're going with this, because at no point have they explained to you what you're seeing.
Yeah, if you know from Endgame and everything, Wanda and Vision, and in this show, there's 2 totally separate characters. They're so incredibly different. It's kind of jarring at first.
Right, well, because
it was for me.
Yeah, because they're acting more like characters in one of those shows. They're acting more like Ozzie and Harriet, or acting more like the Bewitched cast. And then in the new episode, it's supposed to be more of like a Mary Tyler Moore meets Brady Bunch. They're kind of, they're very like Mike and Carol Brady in this one. And so they're not totally really acting like themselves. They're being real corny and goofball, and yeah.
I really enjoy it. I love that shit. So
Yeah, I mean it is entertaining, but it's just confusing because you're like, well, where's this going? Now, before people start screaming at the screen going, you geeks don't know where this is going, it's very obviously based off of...
I know.
We do know that, actually. We're getting there. This show, it's not exactly based off of any particular comic book, but it is based on various story elements from the comic books that they're sort of putting together to create this new story, which is typical for the MCU.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice little amalgamation of many things.
Right. This is borrowing elements from House of M, a storyline that pretty much revolves around Wanda doing some really terrible major things to the world and everything because she's having like a weird mental breakdown sort of thing. And that's the thing about Scarlet Witch, is that we've seen all throughout the MCU, we've seen her from day one sort of struggle with her power.
Yeah.
Because she's basically, like, I don't know if people realize
She's powerful.
She's super powerful.
It's an understatement.
Yeah. You know, for people that thought, like, well, the most powerful one in the universe is Captain Marvel, and she's way up there. It's maybe in a slightly different way, but man, Scarlet Witch, Wanda, she can do some shit. And the problem with that is that Wanda often has been very emotional. She's always been kind of mental a little bit, you know what I mean? Like a little bit, I don't know how I would put it. Like, she has a hard time handling her powers because they're so connected to her emotions.
Yes.
So if she's like emotionally freaking out, so does her powers, and she can't always control it. I mean, we saw what happened at the beginning of one of the movies when they were in Wakanda, and she ended up destroying all this property in Wakanda because she kind of wasn't really in control of what she could do and everything. And ever since then, I think Wanda has always sort of been on the radar of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government and all this kind of going, which is what brought on the whole Civil War, you know, the Accords and all that business, is going, hey, you may be a person, but you're a superpowered person, and you're also, basically, you're kind of like a lethal weapon.
Yeah.
You're a loose cannon, you know, and what she kind of is. So that sort of factors into this too, I think, as possibly.
I think it most definitely will.
Right. So you might be saying, well, what's going on here? You're telling us that it's about this sitcom world and everything. They're on this sitcom. Well, seemingly, we may as well just get into...
On the surface, yes.
Yeah.
Deep down, I don't think so.
Right. We may as well just get into what we think is going on, you know, because piecing it together from what we've seen and what the comics have told us and what we can put together. So the town that this is all taking place in is called Westview. Now, at first, I wasn't sure if Westview was even like a real place, but it appears from what we've seen at the end of episode 3 that it is a real place. However, there's something going on here, and it appears to us that Wanda herself or somebody controlling Wanda is causing her to sort of manipulate the town. Like we saw at the end of episode 3, it looks like almost like there's a giant...
There's an actual bubble around it or something.
Yeah, it's like a force field town. It almost reminds me of like the town in The Truman Show or something, where it's just like this sunny California perfect town that's in this giant bubble that's just being viewed. In fact, this has a very Truman Show kind of feel to it. Because you know that somebody is watching this. They've given us those hints that there is somebody actually watching what's going on that's outside of the events going on in the town. But they've only hinted at that.
couple times.
A few times. Yeah, well, we've come to learn that. So we know from past appearances in the MCU, as well as in the comic books, that there is this organization called SWORD. SWORD, and it stands for
Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division?
something like that.
Something
yeah,
like that.
something like that. So the sentient weapon obviously would be Wanda. Everything is
That's what we're leaning towards.
I'm saying we're talking now as though
we know what's going on.
yeah, exactly.
We're playing here.
We're just kind of like riffing, going, okay, this is what we think is happening. So SWORD are watching what's going on in this town and everything. Didn't really know how much they're involved in it and stuff. At first,
were they watching because they were controlling her?
Yeah, that's what I couldn't figure out at first. But now I don't think.
I don't think
the
so
case.
either. I think they're like trying to
get in there and like
get her,
stop her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because in the latest episode, we found that different people in the town are starting to not only act weird, but they're starting to like say things that more and more that are like
or do
giving
things. Like,
yeah.
What the?
Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah, and hinting at things to lead us to believe that maybe that they're there, but not operating under their own accord and their own free will. One of the characters that we thought was just part of that, but we've come to find out at the end of episode 3 is not, is her neighbor. Well, we may as well just call her what?
By her name?
What
she
her
really
name is. You know, she's been using different names, different kind of little things, but she's Monica Rambeau, meaning she is the young girl in Captain Marvel from back in, that would have been 1995. Well, now it's whatever, 2020 or 2020. I don't know what the year would be. 2023, I guess. Yeah, because it's so far ahead after now
Endgame.
After Endgame and stuff. She's a full-grown adult, and she's clearly working for SWORD, because she even wears a little pendant that looks like a sword, which is what ultimately ends up at the end of the episode, gives her away to Wanda, and Wanda seems very bothered. And this was the main thing that made me realize, like, oh, okay, I think Wanda's completely in control of all of this, because Monica,
she's trying to be in control of it.
Well, yeah, Monica found an open hole there in conversation when all of a sudden Wanda started mentioning her brother Pietro and everything, and Wanda starts bringing up Ultron and how he was killed by Ultron and stuff, and Wanda gets very, very disturbed by
What
this.
did you say?
Yeah, she's like, what did
you
you
say
say?
to
Getting
me?
very threatening, and starts noticing the sword necklace and everything, and realizes that something's going on, and basically she casts Monica out. She like throws her out of the town. She like ejects her through that shield or whatever it is, that whatever bubble it is she's created over this town. Yeah, that's where it ends at the end of episode 3, is that we've seen that. Meanwhile, the neighbors are sort of trying to tip off Vision to the fact that something's like, that everything is not the way
Something's amiss.
it seems, right? And Vision has been figuring that out all along anyway, because he keeps every now and then sort of snapping out of his idyllic sitcom haze and going, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. Like, something's not right. How did we get here? And every time that happens,
Wanda rewinds.
yeah, she'll literally
nope.
either see it rewind or it'll glitch or something like that.
That was creepy. That was weird. Like, what the heck's wrong with my TV?
Yeah, I thought at first it was my my cable or something. I thought it was like, oh, it's freaking out again. No, that was the show. So that was kind of a cool trick. I mean, ultimately, we don't know for sure, but it definitely seems like Wanda is the one that is making this happen. Now, again, whether she's doing it because she wants to, maybe this is like she was having some sort of breakdown and she went and sort of took over this town.
It was a safe haven for herself.
Right, yeah, figuring like since she got robbed of having a life with Vision, by Thanos and all that kind of stuff, and if she's having an emotional breakdown, you know, maybe she just said, I'm gonna take over this town and I'm just gonna live out this like fantasy existence where I can be happy, instead of dealing with the reality of the real world with, you know, her dead lover, her dead brother, all, you know, all this stuff, all the things that she went through. I mean, she was zapped out of existence by Thanos for a while.
Yeah.
You know, what does that do to you? So I'm assuming that she's either doing that, or there's another organization or person or villain or somebody that's manipulating her into doing that, which leads us to Agnes.
Yeah, something's fishy about that broad.
Yeah, the neighbor Agnes. She's played by Katherine Hahn, and she was from, most people would know her from like Crossing Jordan, and she's been in a bunch of things, and she definitely seems to be more important than the other residents of.
She's always there. She just appears out of nowhere.
Right, and at the end, towards the end of the third episode, she's the one that seems to be really the most conscious of the situation, because when the one neighbor starts trying to tell,
No, don't.
right, she starts telling Vision what's going on, she cuts him off, and she's the one that seems to be trying to make sure everybody is keeping up the facade that it's just this happy television existence, but they know it's not. So we don't know. You know, if people are coming to us going, well, we hoped you'd have like some insight and stuff, we really don't. I
We're
mean,
only 3 episodes in. But.
yeah, there's a lot of really cool videos. There's a bunch of them, so there's no point in us going through the list of
Tons of Easter eggs.
all the Easter eggs. But there's some very important Easter eggs in there, especially the commercials that you
Close
see.
attention to those commercials.
Yeah, especially they pop up in the middle of each episode. There's sort of like a faux, like old-timey commercial. Like in the new episode, it was like a ripoff.
Take me away, Calgon.
Calgon, yeah, but it was Hydra soap. You know, it's like, oh boy, well, we know what Hydra is. But there's all these clues, and like I said, we're not going to list all of them for you here. There's other videos on YouTube that you can find, just because there's tons of them. But I suggest, before you even go watch any of those videos or anything, rewatch them and see what you can find out. Because even when I've rewatched it now, I've picked up on more stuff, and I'm like, oh, I didn't catch that the first time and everything. It's really interesting. And that's the thing too. We should mention that, like, you may notice it's just the two of us doing this review. Our third, Vito, is not here with us. Well, Vito, honestly,
hated it.
Yeah,
hated it.
He's not feeling this at all. He's like, I don't like this at all. And there's unfortunately a lot of people out there that I've seen just in my friend group and stuff like that are kind of saying, maybe not that they hate it, but they're just like, I'm having too hard of a time following it, and this just seems real corny and hokey. And I keep telling them, and I'm telling you folks, stick with it, follow the little clues and signs, and you know, all
it's like a mystery.
We
gotta find all the hints that are in there, and I think this last episode is the one that hooked me. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, things are getting interesting now.
Yes.
So stick with it to the third episode, and I think it's going to keep getting better and better.
Yes.
And give us more and more and more what we're expecting an MCU movie to be.
Right. Yeah, that's my thing. For anybody that, you know, maybe you only watched the first couple and you're kind of giving up, if you're any of those kind of people, watch the third episode. I'm not going to say it explains everything. I mean, we kind of told you where it left off with the whole Monica Rambeau being ejected from the town kind of thing. But I do think that now we're starting to get to the point. I can't see how in the fourth episode Vision isn't going to start really delving into like what's going on.
Yeah,
here.
I could see him kind of like going off on his own. Maybe seeing Wanda is like, something's not, you know, every time I bring it up to her, I lose my track.
Right.
And maybe he kind of goes off on his own to kind of discover what's really going on.
And that could be dangerous too, man, because I mean, she's obviously, like we saw at the end of the episode, she's obviously like not all right.
Right.
Plus, one of the other things, again, another big spoiler thing, that something that came up in the second episode and then concluded here in the third episode is Wanda just gave birth. Like, oh,
Got
okay.
pregnant and gave birth in one day.
Yeah, and they even mentioned that. They discussed that in the episode. They make a gag out of it, but it's the whole thing that she got pregnant and gave birth in a matter of like a couple of days, you know? Even though decades are supposed to have gone by in terms of it's real confusing in that regard. But she gives birth to twin boys, of course, because she's a twin. And that is straight out of the comic books.
Tommy and Billy right there.
Yeah, Tommy and Billy. So they end up actually, man, that's a whole story, because there's like in the comics, again, I don't want to spoil too much, but in the comic books, she has these twins, but then you come to find out that they were never really there, and all this stuff that was like all a figment of her imagination and her device, and Mephisto had something to do with all of that and all that. And we might be
so much going on. There's so much going on.
And there might be hints of that whole kind of thing too, because there's theories about who Agnes is, and that she may be a witch character.
Agatha?
Yeah, from Marvel Comics and everything. And that, if that's the case, then that really steers this story in a particular direction according to the comic books. Again, I really don't want to spoil it for everybody.
Well, we can't spoil it because
we don't even know
they're
if
going to stay true to that.
Right, exactly. But I mean, just, we'll see. I'll be curious to see. That's all I'm going to say, is that if it might be that character, and if she might be the witch, and then that indicates a lot of stuff. She could be the one that could be helping to steer Wanda in that direction, or maybe she's protecting Wanda, or maybe she wants those babies.
Could be.
But I mean, Wanda later in the comic books goes back and does end up like basically making those twins exist again and all this stuff, and they become heroes in their own right and stuff. They've got one of them's very fast, just like their uncle Pietro. And
first one, Tommy was born first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tommy is the Speed, I think he's called, and everything. So, are they going to go that route? Because we already know that they're gearing up the possibility of. I mean, we've got Monica Rambeau, who is was a kid and then grows up to be a hero. She ends up having powers.
We're wondering if this show is how we're going to learn where she gets her powers. That'd be pretty cool.
And maybe springboard this whole idea, this whole new Avengers idea with these young Avengers, because then we've got Ant-Man's daughter.
Yep, Cassie.
Cassie, who in the comic books, Ant-Man's daughter becomes the new Ant-Man, basically. Yeah, I mean, this could be a big springboard for
a lot of shows.
What's to come. And I have to think it's got to be, because otherwise, what's the point? I mean, otherwise, why give us this 6-episode show just to have it, just so we can have more Wanda and Vision? That's not the way.
There's a reason.
Yeah, that's not the way Kevin Feige and all of them over there at Disney and Marvel work. They're everything, just like we saw with
The Mandalorian.
Well, yeah, like that too. But also, just like I was just even thinking of Marvel, just the way you go back from Endgame all the way back, and that you found all these things that tied into stuff. Some things even seemed unimportant at the time, There were things that happened in Iron Man 2 and Thor the Dark World and blah, 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 that we kind of just went,
throw away things. They're like, that's arbitrary. We don't care.
And then come to find out by the time we got to Infinity War Endgame that it was like, oh, that factors in, huh? Like nothing is accidental. And so I have to believe that the same goes with WandaVision. This has to be leading up to something.
I agree. I think this is a very fun, different, creative way to tell this story, and I'm enjoying the ride.
I agree. I was just gonna say we should probably say, if people are like, well, what do you think of it? I enjoy it. I think that it's going to be one of those things that we're not really going to be able to give our full review, opinion, whatever, rating, whatever the fuck it is, until it's done.
And then we need to rewatch it to go back and find what we missed.
Yes.
Piece it all together. It's like, oh, I totally missed that. Now it makes total sense.
Exactly. Yeah. But so far, I'm confused like other people about a lot of stuff. Maybe it helps because I do know the comic book history stuff, unlike people like Vito, who isn't a comic book guy. but I am confused, but I'm sticking with it. I'm finding the whole mystery of it very cool. I think the biggest problem, I guess my biggest criticism of it is because they did it this way. And these episodes are pretty short, you know. I think they're barely half an hour. You know, traditionally, people need to be sucked in. Like, they need to have something that really sucks them in. And admittedly, I don't think this show has really had that. Like, take, for example, something like The Mandalorian, like you were just saying. I mean, by the time you got to the end of the first episode, I mean, you'd seen a lot of action. You'd seen a lot of little callbacks to familiar Star Wars things. And then you got, you know, we saw that the child, that there was this baby Yoda and everything. So right away, just from the first episode, there was so much that hooked you in. And this show doesn't quite have that.
No, I agree.
It doesn't really quite have that, you know. There isn't like something major that happens that makes you go, oh, you know, like wow, like where's, you know, it's hooked into this, or we're getting this. It's all been so subtle and so many little hints, and it feels more like a Twilight Zone episode. Except that usually in an average Twilight Zone episode, which was, you know, usually whatever, 50 minutes long or whatever, a Twilight Zone episode, by the end of it, you got it all figured out for the most part, you know. And this just is like a nonstop Twilight Zone episode. Even like they
can't escape it.
Right. Well, I saw it mentioned in another person's video, and I agree that it reminds me of the one story on the Twilight Zone about the little boy who kind of manipulates his whole world, keeps his family and these people trapped in this house. Once they brought that up, like, I was like, oh gosh, this is very much like that. And it you know, that again, that's kind of like, oh, okay, that hints us into more of where this might be going.
Okay.
If you know about that episode and everything.
I'm gonna have to go look it up now.
Depending on how much they're gonna kind of borrow from that and everything. So it's kind of like that, and just like a Twilight Zone episode, you're either into that sort of storytelling or you're not. And I think a lot of people aren't, or they don't have the patience for it. So.
Right. I find it intriguing.
Yeah, I do.
I want to know where this is going, and it's giving me just enough to keep me watching.
Right.
Like, they didn't give me a whole lot the first episode. It gave me just a couple little hairs. The second episode, and the third episode would give me quite a bit.
Right.
Oh, okay. Maybe I could know where this is going. Maybe not. I don't know, but I at least want to stick around and find out. Now I need the other episode. Give me episode 4.
Because
I can't wait any longer.
This, even though they're modeling it after episodic television, you know, like these sitcoms and stuff, it feels more like a movie. It feels more like we're watching a movie in pieces. You know, because I can't, like, if we were to sit here right now and go, well, rank the episodes, you know, like best till I can't.
No.
There's no way to really rank these. I mean, like, because each one of them, it just feels too much like a continuation of.
Yeah, it's not your typical sitcom thing.
Where
like you said, where they wrap it up at the end,
right?
And then now we're into the new one. It's like,
and
no, it's a continuous story.
And I mean, even Mandalorian, I could rank episodes, even though that's a continuous story. They kind of had enough of their own. Each episode had its own sort of
journey,
side quest journey, you know, thing to it that you could go, I like this episode more than this one, and yeah, it's not like that. Mm-mm. So anyway, I mean, we could talk all day about this, but I think as it stands right now, I'm really enjoying it. It's really interesting. It's really weird. It is.
It's all those.
It's the weirdest thing they've done for the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, but like you said, I think it's really cool that it's something different and, you know, not just more of the same.
Right.
So
absolutely.
We'll see where it goes.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. And with that, we will be back, I guess, in a couple of weeks or so. We'll be back with the
episode 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up, and then we can kind of compare where we're at then from where we are in this video. It'll be interesting.
It'll be really interesting.
But we want to know your thoughts. Do you guys have any theories about what's going on with this show? Like, I mean, we have tons of more theories, but we'll be here for 2 hours and nobody wants that. Let us know in the comments. Tell us your theories. Tell us any kind of insights you might have. You might be like, well, you're not thinking
Did you
about...
guys notice this?
Yeah, because there's tons of stuff to notice and everything, but we might have missed things, so let us know. Of course, as always, please like, comment,
Share,
subscribe. You know, hit the bell so that you get notified when the second episode of our review for 4, 5, and 6 comes out. And we'll be back soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.